right, I think we are ready to go ahead and get started. It's about 3 minutes past. So I will go ahead and kick us off here. Welcome, everybody. This is the Next Experience Academy. And today we are going to be talking about the inline editor for Next Experience dashboards. But before we get into that, my name is Brad Tilton. I am on the outbound product management team for our Next Experience products. And with me, I have Amanda and Dan, and I will let y'all introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Joslin. I'm the Director of Outbound Product Management and our Platform BU here at ServiceNow. We're really excited to come and bring this Academy session to you and hear from you and hear from Dan as well.
I'm Dan Kane. I am an Outbound Product Manager with the Platform team. With that, I specifically focus in the platform analytics world within the platform. So it's talking about performance analytics, reporting, getting into user experience analytics and some of those areas. So that's my primary focus. I'm really excited to talk about the neat new tools coming with Tokyo.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan. Before I turn it over to you, I am going to, I'll just go over a couple of things. One, if you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A. Amanda and I will be monitoring the Q&A, and we will kind of surface things to Dan when appropriate. And of course, somebody's trying to call me. Yeah, I think that's about it before we jump in. Amanda, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I'm answering the questions as they come in. So we will be monitoring that. Keep them coming. It won't derail any of the presentation. So if we need to answer any live, we will at the end.
All right. Well, I'm going to stop sharing, and Dan, you can take that over, and I'm going to put a little poll up. If everyone could go ahead and answer the poll, that'd be really helpful for us.
Okay, so we want to find out in this poll initially, if everyone could answer this. We're looking just to see, for the folks on this particular call, if you have worked with the performance analytics application or part of the platform before today. So looking for, yes, it's been just in the what we'll call kind of the classic or core UI. You hear lots of names for it, but it's the previous world of reporting dashboards. That was, the responsive canvas, responsive dashboards, only in that environment, or yes, you have, but only in Next Experience in the new UI, or in both, or no, not at all. And what we're looking for really is, have you actually worked with them? So, created or edited any content in those environments. So do we have any kind of responses on this one yet?
We do. Sorry. Yeah, we've got about, it's split pretty evenly between yes, but only in core UI, and no. And then we have a couple of the middle ones, but for the most part,
nice.
The first and the last one.
I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that there's a few people who are in those middle sections. I was expecting almost everyone to be in the first or the last category, most likely. So, but it's otherwise pretty.
If we end the poll, and then it will show the answers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and end it. And then I will share the results here.
There we go. Good. So the biggest group, is they have, but just within the old environment, some Next Experience and some in both. And a little under half, about a little over a third in not at all. Great. Thank you. That helps me kind of understand how we're going to talk through some of this. So not recognizing there are going to be few people that the whole performance analytics or the whole dashboarding concept is completely new to you. But we'll try to be, I'll try to be gentle with that. So we're talking about is in the general topic is in the inline editor, or really it is one of the new things we have available in the Analytics Center with the Next Experience. So focusing on the Next Experience dashboards. This is all entirely new. This is all brand new for, and I'm going to go past the poll. This is all brand new for Tokyo. So the things we're talking about today, there's a few items that I'll make a reference to that existed in previous releases with Next Experience, but most of what we're talking about today is only if you upgrade or have a new instance on Tokyo. So let's get started. So what I call the old world, for those who that larger group that worked only in that has worked but only in the core UI environment. In the old world, you had reports and you had PA widgets that you could put on a dashboard. There were other objects, but those were really the two primary objects. How you configured them, how you filtered them, how you did any of those sort of things were completely different depending upon whether it was a report that you were visualizing or a PA widget. And we got a lot of feedback, not surprisingly, a lot of feedback that customers wanted to have more of a unified environment. So that's one of the big themes here is the new world with Next Experience is that we just have the concept of the data visualization. It's a data visualization. That's all we really care about. And within a data visualization, you can use as your data source a table, which would be basically a report from a live table. You can make it you can have an indicator, which is the PA pieces. You can use metric base, logs, user analytics, external tables, remote tables. So, and with the other thing I like to mention is within tables, I don't know if many of you used the what was called report sources or data sources in the core UI environment. Those are now predefined conditions. What that means is you can set up for users, instead of them having to figure out how to write their own query, if they really don't know the data as well, you can provide, say, for the incident table or the HR the HR case table, you can provide a predefined query that will give the users the information that they really need for their report. But the main thing though, is that it's a data visualization. There's no difference between PA widgets or report widgets. So in the current state, and I notice my words for now, there are two parallel worlds. We've got the core UI and we've got Next Experience. So when we talk about core UI, where it's the classic world, home pages, responsive dashboards, report designer, accessible from the standard core UI navigation menus. And for Next Experience, some of you, I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the whole idea of workspaces, whether you've worked with them or not. And you have two primary tools, the inline dashboard editor and the visualization designer. So here, we're really just trying to simplify the whole thing. And this is accessible from workspaces. And we'll demo these in just a moment. So what we're striving for, the goals are, with this next release, with the Tokyo release and the inline dashboard editor, we're looking for easier navigation with one-stop shop for all analytics content. This doesn't mean you can still put analytics content in a specific workspace. Say you have a configurable workspace for CSM. You can still put analytics content in that workspace. But one of the pieces of feedback we got from customers with the initial rollouts of Next Experience is that they didn't know necessarily where they had to go to get to just the general dashboards. That's what this solves. They're giving you one place to go for analytics content. You can still put that analytics content anywhere else, but it's the one central place. Consistent creation experience for charts on any platform data source, kind of that previous slide where we're talking about it's just a chart visualization, just a data visualization. How you configure it is identical for the different data sources. Consistent filtering experience for that small majority, for that group that has worked in core UI or in both. You probably have come across the frustrations that I had interactive filters that were available for reporting and breakdown dashboards or breakdown filters were available for PA. Only if you did some extra special configuration could you get them to work together. And even then, it didn't work in all scenarios. Now there is a consistent filtering experience. Usage, so the same filtering, usage information, visuals, and dashboards. So it'll be easier to get usage stats. So another challenge we had in the past with the old dashboards is I couldn't tell which dashboards were actually being used. I could run reports on which widgets, but those were just a part of a dashboard. I couldn't see the entire dashboard itself. So, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this because I want to do more of the demo here. But when we're talking about what used to be the reports and PA widgets are now the data visualizations, a couple of pieces I want to add to this is that we're supporting building charts on different data sources. One additional piece you can do now with the Next Experience or the Analytics Center within Next Experience is you can mark objects, visualizations, and queries and that's marked as certified. That is, there is a certification, there is an admin role and a specific role that is set up that allows a user to say, I'm stamping this particular dashboard, this particular visualization, this particular whatever object as being grade A certified. It's the official one to use for the organization. When I work with the data sources, when I add a visualization, I'll just get a screen that says, what kind of data source do you want? What is the data source? And then we get to play with the settings. And I'll show you that in a minute. And again, this is all new with Tokyo. Analytics Center. The Analytics Center existed in the previous iterations of Next Experience, but it's expanded greatly with the addition of the dashboards and data visualizations and the KPIs. So now you'll see the centralized experience anywhere you can get to Analytics Center from the main workspaces menu, or anywhere you see this Analytics Center icon within any other workspace, you'll be able to get to this place, this location that we're going to be showing. It's an inline dashboard editor, and we'll see that. So it's a dashboard, the single source of truth. So enable all users with no technical expertise to create dashboards. There's a few folks that only worked with dashboards or visualizations in Next Experience or UI Builder. That is a very advanced perspective. You can do a lot of very amazing things with dashboards in the UI Builder, but that's not for the regular dashboard builder. That's for advanced one-off use cases. What the inline editor for is the 90 to 95% of use cases for building out dashboards. Much more intuitive, much easier to use. So and the other big difference from the previous world is that you'll see all your properties. In the old world, you had to go to a different screen to see the properties for your widget. Now I see the properties on the screen, on the same screen. I see the visualization, so I can see the effects of my changes as I make them. Unified filters I mentioned there briefly. So it's the same filter. So these filters on my sample screen, these are all accessible to the objects on my dashboard, whether those objects are based on PA indicators, whether they're based on tables like reports, whether they're based on user experience analytics. All the filters can be configured, all the filters work across those different objects. And we'll do some other cool stuff with this too. Another new concept that we'll show you briefly is the visualization designer. This would be kind of the equivalent of when you created a widget in the old world, you had the ability, you save the widget and that widget could be used elsewhere. Visualization designer gives you the option to create saved visualizations that can be used by anybody. Now you can put permissions on this. You can set roles and sharing so that certain visualizations are not available to everybody. But in general, anyone who can create a dashboard can have the predetermined or pre-saved visualizations available to them. And that's what we're talking about here. And the place I store all of that is in the visualization library. So, and I'll show you that in just a moment here. I just want to get kind of familiar with the terms. So you'll be able to see that if visualization library element is used in other dashboards. So you'll also see that too. So you know that if I'm a person that has the ability to edit an item in the visualization library, and only limited users will, that's a specific role. If I have the permission to edit these visualizations, it'll tell me that, oh, by the way, your changes could affect other dashboards. That's something you didn't have before either. So it's telling you that if you want to make significant changes, you want to check with the owners of these dashboards, or you want to make a copy of it and use your own new version of it. So trying to make this a lot easier to manage that. So that's the background stuff. Let's go into the fun stuff.
So Dan, we did have a few
Oh,
questions
yeah,
come
okay.
in while
Sure.
you're switching. So the first one is, will data visualizations support database views? I think I know the answer to this, but
Yes. Yep.
all
Yes, they
right.
do. So
And
what they will
then,
still, I'm sorry, that just to clarify, they
no,
will
you're
actually
good.
show up within the tables list.
Okay. And then the next one is, does this mean we need to recreate all reports as data visualizations?
Excellent question. V1 in Tokyo, we do not currently have a migration path for the core UI visualizations into the next experience. That is coming, however. So I've got, as kind of the wrap up of the demo here and of the presentation, I've got some guidance on what recommendations we have for kind of working within those two worlds before that time. So I would recommend today, don't recreate, just use the report in the dashboard in the core UI. But that's that for now. But right now we're targeting I think right now, and this is the whole should have the safe harbor disclaimer. This is a future looking statement. It could change. But we're looking at the Vancouver to Washington, hoping Vancouver, but it's, I'd say, almost for certain by Washington release that will have a migration tool to migrate all of the existing dashboard content into the next experience world.
All right, and then just a couple more,
Yep.
a couple of licensing questions. So is PA still a separate subscription? And is there any extra licensing for the data visualization designer and
Good
what
question.
we're looking at today?
No, for the data visualization designer, no, there is no extra licensing for that. The only distinction that licensing has is having access to the PA indicator data sources. So that's the stored data over time. And that's still based upon the license for your application. PA, there are a few customers that still have PA licensed as a standalone application. That is not true for the majority of customers. For the majority of customers, PA is bundled in with your larger system license, like ITSM Pro, CSM Pro. So it's part of that license. And that's not a change with Next Experience.
Okay, awesome.
Anything other questions to address for now?
We do have one around, we have manager rollup as a filter on our classic dashboards. It is a list collector. Will we be able to use it as a filter on UI Builder dashboard? So I think it's asking, can we use list collectors as filters maybe?
Yes, that is one of my, that is one of my babies. I did that. If you've viewed the online labs we have on working with data hierarchies in visualization, yes, that is still supported. So
Great.
Good question.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, let's get into the demo.
Let's get into the demo then. Okay. So I'm looking at, and everyone can see my screen here, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to find that mute button.
Okay. They had no worries. So I got here again, anywhere that has this Analytics Center button within a workspace will bring you to this screen, but the centralized location is under the Workspaces menu. It's now called Platform Analytics Workspace. That's a generic workspace that every logged in user has access to see. That's as long as they have access to workspaces, they can see this. So the Analytics Center is, in general, it's what this has been here before. We have the natural language querying, but now we have some new elements for these dashboards and data visualizations. What it really is then, you notice I have this option that there are bookmarked dashboards and certified dashboards. In this instance, I have not yet bookmarked any dashboards for me personally. This is a way to create shortcuts to the dashboards that really matter to you. Certified then is going to tell me, here are the dashboards that have been certified as centrally approved, that's good on the corporate level. So it's something that, we've kind of said that this is, and you can define within your organization what you mean by certified. Our intention is that this is something that can be shared that can be used as corporate level roll up in decisions. So this can be used for corporate level decision making. And then the data visualizations is going to be that shared library we were talking about. And again, I don't have any that are bookmarked, or I think I might have one certified. I can't remember. But regardless, though, is getting to those options is, it's the different tabs on the Analytics Center too. We have dashboards, we have data visualizations, we have KPIs. So the KPIs are the action. If for those who are used to the old world, this was the scorecards view that you had under the navigation menu. You had under performance analytics and scorecards. This is basically the same thing. But I want to focus more of our time here on dashboards and data visualizations. So if I'm making a dashboard, if I'm creating a dashboard, I'm going to come back to spend most of our time in one I've already done. But when I create a new dashboard, just to create a dashboard, if I have permission to, everyone by default has the ability to create a dashboard. It's the sharing capabilities and the abilities to mark it as certified that are limited. So I can create a dashboard for my own purposes. So I have a choice of inline editor, which is where we're going to spend most of our time, or technical editor, which is using the UI builder, which is that again this should be for that maybe 5% use case where you need to get an admin involved to create very complex data cases. I need to do some really complex data querying and that. So there's some very limited cases where the technical editor will be a good choice. Most of the time we'll want to use the inline editor. So I just give it a name. I'll just give it a name here. Demo Academy, give it a description, and I've still got the inline editor created, and I just create, and it's just creating the background for my new dashboard, and it's going to start with a blank slate, and within my blank slate, I'm going, it's just going to ask me, what do I want to do with this? I'm in editing mode, so really what we're going to focus on is the adding new elements and then also adding tabs. But within this, I can make changes to my dashboard, just basic changes. But so it's just adding a new element. So adding elements to this page. I'm going to spend more of my time though in my existing dashboard. So again, from my Analytics Center, I just chose my simple dashboard that I had created for the demo. And I just have a couple of items on here right now. And they were created. Notice I have the options. I have the option to edit or share, but that's based on my permissions. If I do not have permission to edit someone else's dashboard, I won't see this, and I won't see the option to share it either. So if I go into the edit mode, I'm just as if I'm starting a new dashboard. So I can say I want to add a new element, and I can add an element from the visualization library. So these are the pre-created library elements. Or I can create a new data visualization from scratch. When you're just starting out, there's not going to be a lot in the library. So I think on mine, I might have 1 or 2 items in my visualization library. So I won't spend a lot of time with that, but it's more interested in when I create a new data visualization. When I create a new data visualization, it just pops up a blank component on my screen. And if I want to edit it, there is a button for configuration. And now I get my configuration options on the right side of the screen. Notice it didn't even ask me what kind of visualization when I added the new one. Just I wanted to add a data visualization. Then I can identify what type of visualization I want to add to the page. So I have, all the different visualizations we had in the past, I have available to me now, based on time series, based on multi-dimensions. So, a real common one is I want to put in, say, the default is a single score. And I'm not going to go into all the options here in great detail. I mainly just want to show you this is where they are, and this is where you can play with them. I can show the header. I can show a separator for the header for this particular one. I can say I want a title for this chart, and that title will then show up in my header. Do I want a divider in there? So just very simple options. Do I need to wrap the title? But the more important piece here is when we get into the data sources. So if I want, by default, there is no data source, so I need to add a data source, and this is where it's going to ask me what kind of data source and what data source I want. So it gives me some suggested ones, and that's based upon ones that have been recently used, and then says, do I want this to be based upon tables, or do I want this to be, which would include your database views for it as well, or do I want it to be based upon PA indicators? And I can also just do searches. So if I know I'm going to be looking for, I want to know something about, I want to look for open incidents. It can give me some suggested ones. What it tells me is that there are no tables that include that search term. But if I want to know, say, what are the open incidents that have been reassigned at least once, of my open ones that have been reassigned at least once, I get a sample of what it's going to look like on the screen. This particular one, it has no breakdowns defined against this, but if there were breakdowns on this indicator, I could add filters here, and I'll talk about that in another context here. But it's giving me a preview it's going to look like, and I just say I want to add that data source, and now I can just resize it. I can do whatever I want to with it. I got lots of other options. I can make it, what is my metric? Do I want it to be daily? Do I want it to be an average of the month, yearly average? So again, I can make those sorts of changes here. Most of the changes that a user will want to make when they're creating a dashboard, I can make through here. I can specify a date range. This is one that was not available before. So I can, if I want to specify, let's say that I want it to be a certain number of date ranges back, or I want this to be an absolute period. Let's say I want this visualization to be something that shows me last month or just the month of September. I can do that here. I can set a date range for this particular indicator. So lots of things with my date ranges. Some additional settings. Do I want to show the label of the indicator or not? Do I want to show changes? And what you see for the additional settings is going to change depending upon what visualization type you've selected. So if I do a dial, I'm going to have less options available to me. Additional settings only has a couple of things on it here. Show a metric label. How I want to update the data. Do I want to follow any filtering on the page? Do I want to show that there's a filter? I want to show an icon to say if a filter was applied. Do I want to enable a drill down at all? Do I want to do an automatic refresh after being away for X number of minutes? That's one that did not exist before. That's kind of bringing something over from the old days from the home pages world. And I can have some presentation options for how I want to display it. So some basic options for how I want to display this. The min value, max value, color schemes. I can set up color, so I can be based upon my color schemes and the sort. And I have most of the options that a dashboard creator would need when they're working to create a dashboard. I'm going to pause here before I start looking at some of the other options and see I see we got some questions. So what are some of the questions we have that I can answer?
We do. So the first one is kind of an addition to the licensing question. So if a customer doesn't have, if not paying for performance analytics, can they still use this workspace analytics?
I'll say with a 90% confidence, I believe almost for sure that you can. The only difference is going to be in what data sources you have available to you. So when I was configuring my data source, I will not have the indicators options available to me. That is my understanding. If that is a change, do you guys have a site in your community for the academies? So if we have any updates, we can post something there.
Yes, we will. So great question. We will post this recording on the community with all of the Q&A, and so we will. I'll take a note to follow up on that one, and we'll get a 100% answer.
I'm just about sure, but I would hate to say definitively if I'm not really sure.
All right. Next question was, if you bookmark a certified dashboard, which tab does it show up under?
Right, like under Analytics Center, it's,
Yeah.
I have, when I was at the home, it's still it would be under both. So if
Okay.
I have something that is both bookmarked and certified, it would show in both. It would show in both of these. Then when I'm in a
All right.
dashboard, yeah. So
Yeah, and then we've got a couple of similar questions around basically, do these have to be created in a workspace? And then also, if you don't have the new UI turned on and you're not using workspaces, can you still use these?
but the second question, no. This is fully dependent upon the next experience UI. And there is, for Tokyo, for upgrading Tokyo instances, there is a store app that you would need to enable for this platform analytics workspace to be available. For a brand new instance on Tokyo, it's available by default. And I believe in Utah it's available by default as well, but it is a store app. It's a free store app, but it's a store app for customers upgrading to Tokyo.
All right. And then another one, how many filters can be added for a PA widget?
There can be, I think I know where the question is going. I can add any number of filters to my page. So right now I've got 2 on this page, the filter pills. However, within an indicator, when the data source was an indicator, remember our data source is over on the side. If my data source is an indicator, I still am limited to the 2 layers of breakdowns for now. So in other words, if I choose more than 2 on my filters list, it'll still only apply the first 2 if there were breakdowns available to that indicator. The big disclaimer is for now. So another safe harbor disclaimer is that is something that issue is being addressed with a new analytics model that's coming, I'd say realistically in the Washington timeframe. We've got some customers that are working with it in a limited availability, not early availability, but limited availability, which is kind of alpha, early beta testing, working with the new analytics model that will allow up to, I believe the last I heard is up to 20 levels of breakdowns that could be applied. So it's coming. And I would like to set the expectation for Washington. So if it's any sooner than Washington, we'll all be really pleasantly surprised. So
awesome. All right.
I assume that's the question you're really asking there.
I think that sounds like it was the right question. Yeah. The next one is, so you're using these in a workspace app shell right now. There's also the portal app shell. Can you show one of these in a portal, in a UIB portal?
Very good question. If it's in a UIB, that's what I need to clarify. If it's a service portal using the actual service portal interface, these components are not available to it. Anywhere in UIB, they are. If it's any type of UIB page. So that's a really good question. So it's
right. We still have a bunch.
Okay.
All right. So the next one is, if I have indicators predefined from a previous report query that I've written, have 12 of them placed on a simple dashboard, is it possible to have a parameter that would allow me to modify a date field applicable to all indicators to update them all at once, so I don't have to edit each one separately like I do today?
So I'm thinking with indicators predefined from a previous. So we mentioned indicators and then reports.
I'm going to modify a date field.
If it's the modifying is, if it's an indicator, that means it's still data that was collected over time. So it's our PA data collector, and I'm not going into detail for that because if you, we have a PA Academy for that, but we have a PA data collector that puts data into a scores table. The scores table is what's being read. So when the visualization is saying, I want to apply a date range to it, it's saying for that date range, say for the month of September, I want to apply the month of September to all of the scores in my PA scores table. So only look for scores that were within the range from September 1st to September 30th. For a report, so that shouldn't change. So that when you had an indicator from the previous, from the previous UI, the indicator itself still comes over just as the same. Matter of fact, you still create indicators and breakdowns the same way you did before. And reports would be the same. So it's just say, if you defined the parameter in a report, you would need to, my understanding is you would need to recreate the report today. So a report cannot be added. A report from the old UI cannot be added directly to the next experience UI or to a workspace dashboard. But that's, again, part of the migration that's coming down the road.
All right.
I hope that helps.
I think that got it.
Yeah.
But Dave, if that didn't answer the question, go ahead and comment when we post this to the community, and we'll get a better answer. The next one is, if you add a new data viz directly onto a dashboard, does it get saved to the library?
It does not. The way a data visualization gets saved, you actually have to go to, I'm going to exit my editing mode. From the Analytics Center, if I want to create a shared data visualization, so I can't get it from here, but I actually have to go to the data visualizations and create a new one from here. It's the same process, but from here is the interface where I can create a saved one. I believe, and I believe that's in a feature request is in the pipeline already to make it so that when I create something from a simple dashboard, when I'm editing, I have the option to say I want to save this as a library visualization, but that's not available today. So from here, I can start, it's the same exact process, but I'm just starting from the visualization designer page. So I'm just adding things the same way I did before. Same configuration option, same everything else. The only difference is I'm saving it to be available for others. Okay.
All right.
Anything
I
else?
think we've been through a lot of them. There's a few more, but I don't want to, if you've got more to demo, let's go ahead and jump
Yeah,
into
because the one thing I really want to show is the filtering, because the filtering is, it's very different, but I think it'll take a little bit of getting used to. But I think once you've done it, once you've worked with it a couple of times, it'll start to become very intuitive. So
we have a couple of questions around filters. So that's great.
Good. All right. So I'm going to go.
We might get there.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with an existing filter first to give the concept of what this is doing. So when I want, so if I want to, so I just had again and click my configure button to get into the configuration. And the one thing I want to show for this is if I want this one filter, because it's the filter for categories, I want this one filter to be applicable to multiple data sources. So let's say in this example, I said I want this filter to be available to any queries based upon the incident table or any queries based upon the change request table. So in other words, if I have different visualizations on the page, one is for change request, one is for incident, I can have this same filter apply to both of those. And I can add additional as well. So if I wanted to do the same thing based upon the one of the case tables, it's like the customer service case. I can select if there's a category field here, I'm just selecting what field I want to apply from the case table I want to use for this category. So, and you can label it anything you want to, just like with other items, but I can cross, but the idea here is we try to make it very easy to cross data sources. What it also means is if I have a PA indicator, because PA indicators, remember, was the difference in the old world. If I have a PA indicator, any indicator that uses incident as its source table, as its, so again, for those who understand the PA world, it's coming from an indicator source. If incident is its indicator source, I can apply the same filter applies. The same filter applies to the PA indicator, so to this widget. So if I want to apply this here, let's just apply this category. Now I've got my number of open incidents, and I select a category. Let's say hardware and apply. These are PA indicators here. So it's applying that as PA indicators. This other one is an example of, even though notice the difference on the filter icon here. It says there are 0, if you can see that well, which means no filters. Even though I selected a filter, no filter is applied to this particular visualization. I happen to know, and I could dig into it, is because of the source, the data source of this particular visualization is not included in the sources that I had set up for the filter, the data sources I'd set up for this filter. Because this particular visualization, it's a single score, and it's using number of open incidents that missed SLA, which is based upon not the incident table. It's actually based upon the incident SLA database view. So that's the main thing here. So it's because it's not entirely, because that's this part of this is a formula. So this part of the formula, or this part of the indicator, is not in there. So if I wanted to make if I wanted to make that change, I could, on my filter, I could then just add in the incident SLA table, and I'd have to dot walk to the incident itself. Let's see, I can't remember if incident here is, now I have to go to the task, right? Task, and then to the task category. Come on, where's my, oh, it wasn't task, it's an incident task. Incident task. And I'm running off my page here. So it'd have to be the incident category at this point here then. So it's dot walking to get to the incident category, starting from the incident SLA table. So now, once I have this, it's going to try. It still is looking at the contributing indicators that go into this one, that go into this formula. So that doesn't change. But the idea is that I have to add that as a source of data for my filter. So it's looking at it kind of the opposite way we did before. Now we're saying, starting from the filter, what tables do you want to be able to filter based on this? So I'm adding them as my different data sources. And I can put in default values, and I can put in whether I want to have an option to clear the filter. So lots of different choices I can have with these filters. So I just wanted to make that mention. The other thing, the other part of filters that I think is going to be really exciting to people who have worked with PA in the past is when we have multiple tabs. So my dashboard right now just has the single tab. There's one tab. But if I want to add, just like you could within the responsive dashboard environment, and say this is going to be my details page. I'll just say that just for the sake of calling it. Now that detail page has nothing on it. I could add elements to it. My initial tab, let's say I now want to call this the overview page. My initial tab is where my header and my other filter items were created. If I want this content to be available to the other tabs, all I have to do is simply drag this up into this new header area. So if I want those filters to be available to only one tab, I would create the filter at the tab level. But if I want these filters to be available to other tabs on this same dashboard, I just drag it up into the dashboard header section that gets created when I add in a second tab. So that's a change that didn't exist before. So that's a pretty big one. I think that's one that is going to be very, very popular. The other thing I need to say about filtering, and there might even be a question on it, it looks like I can just apply a filter to an indicator. However, that indicator still has to have had that breakdown set up against that indicator. So the number of open incidents indicator, this is again the PA indicator versus a report. This does not change. I still have to configure my indicator to have a category breakdown applied against it. So that's an option to apply against this particular indicator. Reports or table-based queries, you don't need to do that. Indicators you do, because it's all based upon the data collection. We have to put this data into scores, and the scores are saved over time. I have to tell it which categories or which breakdowns I want to get scores for, and then do my data collection. So it doesn't just automatically create it. You would still have to do, I have it in my favorites, but you would still have to, and I'm just show this very quickly. There still is the regular performance analytics menu where I'd set up my automated indicators, set up my automated breakdowns, set up my indicator sources and breakdown sources. The back end does not change. What we're doing with that is we're really trying to make it clear where the different roles come in. So the idea is that a dashboard builder, the person who's creating the visuals for the dashboard, is a different role than the person who is creating the data sources on the back end. The person who's creating the data sources on the back end is still probably going to be like a PA admin, a reporting admin, that has more control over those indicator sources or what goes into the collection jobs. Now, as a dashboard creator at the workspace level, the visualization level, I am just a consumer of the components that have been set up for me. So I can make requests for new ones. But and that's something that customers were looking for. They were looking for, because it was always really hard to determine, where do I do my development in a subprod or in my dev environment, and where can I just build my components in production? Data visualizations are one of those rare scenarios where we would say it's okay, still dependent upon your own corporate standards, it's okay to build a data visualization in my production environment, because I'm not adding any new queries. I'm not doing any new really dangerous data querying to my system. Now, many companies, if not most companies, still like all the visualizations to be created in a subprod and then graduated up to production. All I'm saying here is that you have that option to more clearly distinguish those types of roles. So I'll stop here again. We're coming to the last 10 minutes here. So other questions?
All right. Yes, we do have a few really good questions in here. So one of them is a request to clarify the relationship between these new dashboards and workspaces. They must exist within a workspace, but Analytics Center is also itself a workspace. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Correct. Analytics Center is itself a workspace, but it's just an option I can have on my on a home, like if I had like a configurable agent workspace, I can put Analytics Center as an option, as one of my button options on the configurable workspace. So I would see this same screen. I also, though, within any other workspace, let's see. I'm not an expert in other workspaces, so bear with me on this. Like this one, I have Analytics Center, but I can also add, if I wanted to, like within UI, if I have a person who's working with UI Builder and setting up this workspace, I can add any one of these data visualization components, just like I did in the platform analytics workspace. I can add those components to this configurable workspace if I'm in my edit mode for the workspace. So I just kind of does that help with that question? I think that, because the idea is that all of these components are, all of these individual components are components that are available to a workspace.
Yeah, just to clarify that, Dan. So it is itself a workspace, is a way you can put this together, but you could also do this directly within a workspace.
Right.
So you don't need to enter it from only starting from this workspace. And I think there's a good one as well. Where could they go for training?
Good question. There is some training that's available now in the Now Learning platform. Within, you just need to create an account within Now Learning that's free. There are free trainings on the inline. I think just what you do want to do a search for is look for the inline editor, I believe is the term. Again, that's something we can update if I'm getting the search term wrong. There is also tons of resources available and more adding all the time in the community. Then that we have a community that's specifically for the platform analytics environment. I know for a lot of you, the community is changing right now. So the community interface has changed, but we do have a lot of content available. It's not necessarily formal training, but lots of resources available to, we have put lots of specific topics in there.
And we'll put a link to both of them, both the PA community area subforum, as well as the Next Experience and Configurable Workspace subforum. Those will both be links that we can put into the follow-up.
Good. So yeah, good question.
And then we've got a couple of questions around, can they get this store app in their personal developer instance? So if you don't know the answer to that, that is generally a per app, something per app. So
I have seen it done. So yeah, as long as your PDI, as long as your personal developer instance is on Tokyo or higher, obviously Tokyo at this point, yes, it should be available to you to add to the store.
And then you mentioned for the plan is for Utah for that to be trued up. So when somebody upgrades to Utah, they probably will get it automatically.
Automatically, yeah. Again, got to always put the safe harbor disclaimer. That is the plan at this point.
All right. Can you hide the Analytics Center workspace until we can properly support it? They're an early adopter that has some old queries and processes and doesn't want people to be able to access it right now.
Just like any other workspace, you can configure the default is that it is visible, but within the workspace's setup, you can still go into UI Builder and make this not accessible to people. So yeah, you can do that.
All right. Then we had another question. I can answer part of this. Is there any instructor-led training for this and UI Builder or for advanced training? So I know for UI Builder, we don't currently have any instructor-led training, but we are working on an advanced UI Builder course that'll go on Now Learning. I still don't think it'll be instructor-led. It'll probably still be self-paced, but we are working on something. And then again, we will publish all of the links to all of the training that currently exists. I don't think there's any instructor-led training on this either, probably.
No, right now it is just the initial inline editor training. Same answer though, it's in process. It's in process right now.
All right. All right. I think there are some more specific questions in here that I think may not be the right thing to answer on this call.
I did see one question about like dynamically filtered. Yes, you still can apply. Time is short, but you still can make those filters be applied dynamically. So I can say that if my dashboard, I only want to see the incidents. I'm a manager. I only want to see the incidents that apply to my teams. That sort of thing. Yeah, you absolutely can apply dynamic filters.
All right. Well, yeah,
the training is really needed for the new functionality. Agreed.
Yeah, I would say, Patricia, though, we are moving away from instructor-led training and really working on being more interactive with our training. So I would definitely get used to self-paced and then finding additional resources in the community where we all are to ask specific questions after the training.
Yep. So that, I know we're coming right up on the top of the hour. That is the primary pieces that I wanted to cover today. Mainly the other piece, I'd say, from a recommendation perspective. Again, unless you have a really compelling reason that you have to get something into the workspace view, I would not worry about trying to recreate anything. What I would do is maybe start playing with it unofficially. Don't start creating any official dashboards yet, but start saying, I want to see what it would be like to take this dashboard I had in Core UI or in the responsive dashboards, and how could I recreate it in the platform analytics workspace? By all means, start doing that, but just don't make it your official version yet. That would be my, and I just recommend in general, come in here and start playing with it, because there's lots of options. The configuration options are going to be increasing with each release. I will tell you, I can't tell you exactly all features, but we are not yet 100% feature parity between the responsive dashboards and the inline editor. The inline editor adds a lot of new stuff, but there still are a few pieces of functionality that are not yet available that were available in the responsive dashboards. Again, I don't remember, I don't have those off the top of my head, unfortunately, but just one. So it's still so we really will, when we have the migration available, we won't do the migration until we say that we are complete feature parity, so that you'll get everything you had in the old environment and the new stuff in the workspace. Then we'll have the migration tools.
We are at time. Thank you so much, Dan. We will follow up with links, but we really appreciate your time. Brad, did you want to give a plug for the next Academy?
Yes, we will be doing an Academy again next month. I don't think we are completely nailed down on the topic yet. We have a couple of ideas, but as always, you can find that on our COE, the same place you signed up for this Academy. We'll be there, and we will be posting the recording of this Academy along with the Q&A probably either later this week or the beginning of next week. So you can expect to see that soon. And with that, thanks so much, Dan. This was really great. I know I learned a lot. We had some great questions. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you everyone who asked a question. These are really great when they're more interactive like this one. So thank you all so much. Thanks, Amanda. And everyone have a great rest of their Wednesday.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.